To speak proficient English, you must know these uses of modal verbs. If there's anything on this page you're not sure about, watch this video. I'm going to go through all uses of modal verbs briefly, and then I will go through 30 advanced uses of modal verbs in detail. Advanced use number 30 is can for extreme surprise. Before we look at this in more detail, let's remind ourselves of some of the basic uses of can. We can use can for ability, permission, requests, possibility, and negative deduction. With ability, I can play the guitar. It's something I am able to do. With permission, you can start the exam, but you can't use your phone. Someone tells you if it's permitted or not. With requests, can you pass me the salt? With possibility, you can walk up the hill on this path or you can go by bike. In other words, it is possible to do either one thing or the other thing. With negative deduction, we are working out that something cannot be the right answer in the present. And note this is only used in the negative with the word can. But let's go back to can for extreme surprise. Let's look at a couple of pictures first to get a better understanding of what we mean. Do you ever remember being in an exam like this? Let's say the exam started at 2 o'clock and you work really hard at this exam, so hard that you don't notice that all the time has already passed. The trouble is you haven't finished the exam. And you are so surprised that the exam has finished already. And you say this, it can't be time to finish. It feels like I've just started. So here, can't does not mean that something isn't true. The situation is true. We're using can't to show our surprise that it's true. We're surprised that it's time to finish. In another example, have you ever finished first in something? If you have, you might have said this, we won first prize. Can you believe it? Now here, can you believe it doesn't mean that you don't believe it or you should be able to believe it, but what it means is it's hard to believe. The situation is true and it's hard to believe. Can you believe it? I'm finding it hard. So can is used for extreme surprise. And now something to help you with your learning. Learning is always better when there is a task and interaction. So I have a task for you. Which common use of modal verbs has been missed out of this video? Watch carefully. Type your answer in the comments and I'll let you know if you were right. Now for the modal verb could. Here are some basic uses of could. Ability in the past, which is general, polite requests, past possibility, and suggested actions. With ability in the past, an example might be, I could touch my toes when I was a child. It's something I could generally do when I was a child, not at one specific moment, and it's in the past. With polite requests, could you help me with my homework? It's slightly more polite than using can. With possibility, we could see the beach from our hotel room. It's something that was possible to do, and again, it's in the past. With suggested actions, the front door is locked. You could try the back door. So could here introduces a suggestion. But there are some more advanced uses of could. For example, past permission, present deduction, and past deduction. With past permission, they could play in the park when they were younger, but now they are too old. It's something they were allowed to do when they were younger. With present deduction, they could be hiding. This is what we think might be the case at the moment. But with past deduction, the parents could have called them home. This is what we think might have happened before now. But it's all to do with our thinking based upon what we know. It's deduction. But now for a more detailed look at the most advanced uses of could. And number 29 on our list is could never have. Here's someone who has a job. They think everything is going well until one day they get fired. The manager tells them they no longer have their job. And the worker says this: I could never have imagined this happening. And here, could never have means I was unable to. I was unable to see what was going to happen. Number 28 is I tried how I could. Let's continue our story of the person who's lost their job. A colleague of theirs then goes to the manager and begs the manager to give them their job back. And they tell their friend this: I tried how I could to stop him. And here this means with all my ability. I tried how I could. 27, I could not, can sometimes be used for I don't, but this is particularly old-fashioned English. It's something you're more likely to read than to hear. Imagine you have someone in your family, perhaps an uncle, who has gone to prison. They're being released from prison, but you're not happy about it. You say this: my uncle has been released from prison, though I could not wish to see him at present. And here I could not wish means I don't wish to. But again, let me remind you, this is a more old-fashioned use of English. And 26 is unreal past possibility. Has anyone given you lots of presents that you weren't expecting? Maybe you've said this before: my father gave me an amazing gift. It's more than I could have wished for. And here, could have wished for means imagining what was possible in the past. Perhaps in the past, I may have had these wishes, and this was more than those wishes I had in the past. I couldn't have wished for more. It wasn't possible to wish for more. And lastly, with could, future deduction. Here's a lady who enjoys dancing until one day she gives up. It's sad that she stopped dance classes. She could have become a famous dancer. And here, could have become means a possible future outcome which will now never happen. So we're familiar with could have being for the past, as in past deduction. But this situation is not past. We're thinking about a possibility for the future. But it's a possibility for the future that is not going to happen because she's decided to stop dancing. So we are deducing, we are imagining, we are speculating the possibility that could have existed in the future. This is something that is in the future in our minds, where we're thinking about what the future would look like when we get there. But it's not going to happen. It's an unreal future situation, and we can use could have to represent that. And to learn English grammar from beginner to advanced level, take my course, Perfect English Grammar. It has 33 hours of videos, 500 individual lessons, and there's a special offer in the description to this video. Now let's look at the modal verb would. There are many advanced uses of would, but let's start with the basic uses. At a basic level, we can use would for the past of will, for reported speech, past habits and routines, being hypothetical, and polite requests. As the past of will, we could say this: they said they would return next summer. So here, somebody or some people have said, we will return next summer. But when it's reported to someone else, will becomes would in reported speech. They said they would return next summer. With past habits and routines, The circus would come to my town every year when I was young. So this is something that was a routine every year. It happened regularly, so we use would for that. With being hypothetical, the example we have here, if I were braver, I would work with lions in a zoo. So we are imagining a situation which is not real, and we use would. But note, this is a present situation. And with polite requests, would you give up your chair for the elderly lady? Would is more polite than will or can. But there are also some more advanced uses too. We can use would for the future in the past. For example, the day ended badly, it would get better the next day. So would introduces the next day, but it's the next day from the time in the story, not from now. It's the future compared to a past time. With past refusal, I wouldn't go to the zoo last year because there were no birds there. So they refused, and wouldn't shows it's a past refusal. With the next example, I'm not surprised you're going. I would do the same. Here the subject, which is I, comments as if they were doing it. I would do the same here means my actions and your actions would be equal. There would be no difference between them. So would indicates that this is my action if I stand in your place. And it can be the same in the past using would have. I'm not surprised you didn't go. I would have done the same. But now let's look at the most advanced uses of would. 24 is make claims less direct. Let me walk you through an example to show you what I mean. So imagine that you are looking at some research and you read one paper of research that says yes about the topic, but then you read another paper that says no about the same topic. And you might think this: the results were different to the previous study. This would suggest that one of the studies made a mistake. Let's focus on would suggest here. Would suggest means I think this is true, but I don't want to appear overconfident. Because we could have just said this suggests that one of the studies made a mistake. We don't have to use would. The effect of would here is simply to take the emphasis off the suggest. It makes it appear less confident, less assuming. And we do this a lot, particularly in formal academic writing. We use would followed by an opinion word when we are introducing conclusions about something, where we want to say, this is what I think the truth is, but I don't want you to think I'm being arrogant or overconfident. Would just lessens the impact of the word and makes it less direct for the person reading it. 23 is stating preferences. If you've been to the United Kingdom, you'll know what the dish is on the left. This is fish and chips. On the right we have steak. Which one do you prefer? Well, the person here says this in response to the question, would you like fish and chips? They say, I would rather have a steak, please. So here, would rather introduces my preference. We could also say would prefer as well. 22 is future speculation. Would you like to go on a holiday to this place? But do you not have enough time? You might say this: it would have been nice to go on holiday, but I've far too much to do. So here I'm imagining about a holiday in the present or the future. We're not talking about the past. I would like to go on holiday in the future, but it's not possible. So I am imagining what the situation could be like if it were true. It would have been nice. 21 is as luck would have it. Imagine you buy a new house. You go upstairs, you look under the pillow, and you find money under the pillow. And you say this: when we entered our new home, as luck would have it, we found money under the bed. And here, as luck would have it, means very lucky. It's an adverbial phrase that we add when we want to say that we've been very lucky in a particular situation. And number 20 is, would you believe it? Imagine you meet the king, and the king comes over to you and shakes your hand. Would you believe it? The king shook my hand. In other words, it's hard to believe. Would you believe it? I'm finding it hard to believe. Let's move on to some more modal verbs. And this time we're looking at may and might. Firstly, some basic uses: logical deduction for the present, logical deduction for the past, permission with may, and offering good wishes with may. With logical deduction for the present, the train might be coming. I can hear it in the distance. So this is where we work something out based on what we know now. Logical deduction in the past is working something out based on what probably happened before. The train may have left. It's not at the station. So here we're thinking about something that probably happened in the past. With permission, we only use may. May I sit next to you? And if you offer good wishes, this is also may. May you enjoy good health in the new year. But there are some more advanced uses as well. And number 19 in our list of advanced modal verbs is may as well or might as well. Let's go back to our idea of being in an exam. Let's imagine you're taking the exam and you come across some questions that you just don't know the answer to. I may as well give up. I don't know any of the answers. And here, may as well or might as well means I can't succeed and I think this is what I should do. So we say this when we are in a more negative situation. We come to the end of something and we think, this is what I should do next because I'm failing. I may as well give up. Now notice may as well is quite similar to may well, but may well or might well are different. I may well give up means it's very possible that I will give up. May as well has a negative indication to it. May well could be positive or negative. May well simply states a higher level of possibility. May as well has a sense of what you should do when there is a problem. Number 18 is past lamentation. What do I mean by past lamentation? Stay with me, I will explain. Have you ever ridden a bike and found it has a problem with its brakes, causing a problem such as a crash? Now, if someone has lent you the bike, you're probably going to be angry with them that they gave you a bike and the brakes didn't work on that bike. You might say this: you might have told me the brakes didn't work. I could have had a bad crash. And here, might have told means you should have done this. You should have told me. And I'm also feeling annoyed about it. You might have told me the brakes didn't work. You should have done this. 17 is might, meaning strength. Now here, strength is a noun. And I've included this because in this situation, might is not a modal verb, but it may confuse you to hear the word might being used as a noun. So it's important to know that this can happen. And here is some context about how you might hear it. Imagine your car is broken down and you need to push it off the road. But I tried with all my might, but I could not move the car. And here, my might means my strength. So if you see the word might followed by an article or an adjective or some kind of determiner, pronoun, it doesn't mean a modal verb. Here it means strength. And 16 is future speculation. You want to go to London, but unfortunately you can't. I'm sad we're not going to London next year. We may have been able to see Big Ben. So this is future speculation on a situation which is not possible. It's similar to could have been. So we could have been able to see Big Ben. Could have, may have, and might have all work in the same way when it comes to future speculation. Should is another modal verb with advanced uses, but let's look at the basic uses first, which are advice or suggestions, obligation, or the right thing to do. So with suggestions, you should stop smoking. It's bad for you. With obligation, children should not play ball games on the grass. Here, there's an indication that someone is giving permission or giving orders. And the right thing to do, we should tell the hotel that we broke the shower. It would be wrong to deny it. So here, there is no obligation, and it's not necessarily advice. We're simply exploring the right thing to do. Now for some more advanced uses. We could use should when it's a good idea for the past that didn't happen. For example, I should have started learning English when I was younger. I'd be fluent by now. So should have started here is something that would have been a good idea in the past, but I didn't do it. So I'm expressing the fact that I wished this is something I had done in the past. The next example is the opposite. It happened, but it wasn't a good idea. And here we use shouldn't have. I shouldn't have spent so much time doing nothing. Now I'm poor. And we can also use should in conditionals to say what is expected in the situation. If you're cold, you should put a coat on. This is what I expect. But now for the most advanced uses of should. And at number 15, the planned time of events. Imagine you are thinking about a stadium and a football match, and you want to know, when does the football match start? And the answer is it should start at 3 p.m. And this is the planned time for when it will start, referring either to the present, that's if you're expecting it to start now, or for the future. If you're thinking about later, it should start at 3 p.m, meaning later. But it can also be for previously planned time, with a slight difference. It should have started at 2 p.m, but it has been delayed because of the bad traffic. So there was a previous planned time, 2 p.m, and now it's not that time anymore. Note that we can use should have with this meaning in the past, present, or future. With the past, you may not know if it started at that time. Maybe in this case, you're talking to someone at 2:30 and you're outside the stadium and then you notice there's not much noise. And you say to your friend, has the football match started? It should have started at 2 p.m. So here it's in the past. You're talking at 2:30 p.m. But you're imagining if that expected situation happened or not in the past. With the future, the planned time has changed. It should have started at 2 p.m. in the future, but it has been delayed because of the bad traffic. So here, perhaps you're talking at 1 p.m. You're looking forward in time. It should have started at 2 p.m. But there's been a change. So when you're using should have for planned time in the future, then you're talking about a time which has now changed. If you're talking about should have for the past, you're talking about something where you do not know if it changed or not. you're simply saying this was the expectation of how it should be. Number 13 is ought to and ought not. Now, in some ways, this is not an advanced feature, but it becomes advanced when we look at the grammatical arrangement of the words. In positive statements, ought to can replace should in formal situations, and it's important to remember that. Ought to is a formal alternative for should. It often means exactly the same. In questions, use ought without to. Ought you be doing that? Your parents told you not to. But in negatives, you use ought not to or ought not. For example, we ought not do that. Our parents told us not to. Or we ought not to do that. So the advanced thing about ought is the different arrangements of language in the question form and the negative form. So it's important to remember those and to get those right. 12 is future expectation. Are you going to a wedding this year? If you are, you might say this: we're going to a wedding. It should be a wonderful occasion. This is what we expect to happen. It's similar to point 15 about planned time. But in this case, we're simply stating our expectation of what the situation will be like in the future. Now let's look at the modal verb shall. Firstly, the basic uses. Before we begin, let's look at the point at the bottom because that's really important. Shall is generally a more formal and less used version of will, except in some situations. But let's go through these basic uses first. Shall can be used for the future as with will. We shall visit our aunt and uncle tomorrow. We could have said we will visit. It's used for polite offers. Shall I give you some assistance? And also for indication of requirements. Everyone shall leave the area immediately. It's too dangerous to stay. And this last point leads in to the more advanced use of shall, which is added obligation. Here we have someone looking at their watch because it's about to get dark. What happens in this situation? Well, sometimes a parent will tell a child, "You shall get back before it's dark." Now here, shall is a stronger instruction than will. If you say you will get back before it's dark, it just sounds like you're predicting the future. But if you say you shall get back before it's dark, then you're more than predicting the future. You're indicating to them, I require this of you. I'm putting added obligation on. With must, there are a number of rules at the basic level, the C1 level and the C2 level. Let's start with the basic rules. We can use must for obligation or prohibition, strong recommendation, or certainty in the present. With obligation, you must not walk on the grass. This is a rule. With strong recommendation, you must go on a river trip while you're here. This doesn't mean there's a rule, but we strongly recommend it. And with they must be on the boat trip, we're indicating that we have certainty in the present that this is true. At a slightly more advanced level, we have certainty in the past, annoyance and determination. With certainty in the past, he must have left his phone in his bag. I can hear it ringing. With annoyance, must you talk so loudly? And here must is stressed and it has the effect of showing that you're not happy with the situation. With determination, I must carry on. I'm so close to the finish. And here must is almost as if you are putting a rule on yourself. Even though, of course, you could break your own rule, but it's to do with determination. If I say I must do something, then you're telling yourself this is a rule for yourself. Make it a rule so that you will make sure it happens. What about the most advanced uses then? Well, we have phrases such as it must be, and then a word in the middle, and then that. Let's explore this a bit more. Have you ever been late for a bus or a train or a plane? Will the bus, train or plane wait for you if you're late? Usually, no. You might see a notice like this. It must be emphasised that the plane will leave even if you are late. And here, must be emphasised means I'm stressing the importance. And we can use this construction, must be, followed by a word, followed by that, to stress the importance. It must be noted. It's important to note something. It must be stated. It's important to state something. So this is a really good advanced phrase to use if you want to stress the importance of something. Number 9 is need. And again, this is to do with the grammar that we use following the word need. Let's introduce need first of all along with have to, because need to and have to can be used instead of must for obligation, prohibition and strong recommendation. They cannot substitute must in all situations. Have to can also be used for present certainty. This has to be true, but we don't say this needs to be true. That means something completely different. With need to, we have some grammatical complications that are similar to ought to. We add to in the positive sentences. You need to do this. To is optional in the negative sentences. You don't need to do this. You need not do this. Or you need to not do this. There's various options with need. And in questions, to is not normally used at all. Need I go? Yes or no. But we don't need to. We don't see need I to go, just need I go. Number 8 is needs must. Here's someone who's working all day. And look at the time, there's a little moon in the window. He's also working at night. Why is he working so hard? He says this, I don't want to work overtime, but needs must. In other words, it is necessary to meet your needs. If you say needs must, it means I'm doing something because I have to meet my needs. I have to have enough money to live. I have to have enough food. I have to do something that is absolutely essential for my life. And when that happens, you can say needs must, just simply like that. Notice it's like it's in a clause all of its own. Needs is like the subject and must is like a verb. Needs must, full stop. That's the end of the sentence. It's a really unusual structure in English, but we do use it a lot as natives. Number 7 is must as a noun. Again, it's important to recognise that must very occasionally is not used as a modal verb, but a noun. So you need to be able to recognise it when you see it or hear it. Here's an example. Here's a picture of, can you guess? Have you been here? This is the Alps range of mountains in Europe. People say it's beautiful in the summer. In fact, they could say something like this. Walking through the Alps is a must. It's so beautiful. And here a must is something you should do or perhaps something you should have. We're coming towards the end of our exploration of modal verbs, but we've missed out this major modal verb so far, will. There are lots of basic uses of will. Strong requests. Will you help me right now? This is less polite than would. Future certainty. It will be cold this winter. If you're certain, you could use will. Predictions with no physical evidence. Your mother will be mad when she sees the mess you have made. This is what you feel is going to happen, but you don't have physical evidence. You haven't seen the mother, so you use will rather than going to. You use going to when you do have physical evidence. Maybe You'll say going to because you've had a phone call with your mother and she has made it very clear about how she feels. You've got physical evidence. But if there's no physical evidence, it's just what you think, use will. Promises use will. I will pay you once I have the money. Or if you make an offer, don't worry, I'll help you. If you have an intention that was unplanned or a decision that was unplanned, then you can use will here. Imagine you go to court and the court says something against you, and you think the judgment is unfair, so I will appeal against the court's decision. It's an intention, it's a response, it was unplanned, but it's a decision. Also, as a more basic use, is future continuous. She will be running in the marathon at this time tomorrow. So we're anticipating an activity in progress at a particular time in the future. The future perfect. She will have finished the marathon by the end of tomorrow. So this is something that will be in the past at a particular time in the future. Sometime between now and the end of tomorrow, she will have finished the marathon. Or a refusal. I won't jump out of the plane. I'm far too scared. So won't here indicates a refusal in the present. But what about these more advanced uses? The first one, at number 6, is will for threats. Imagine someone is preventing you from opening this door. You get angry with them and you say this: "Don't get in my way. I'll call security if you do." So here, will is a threat. I will do this. You will be in trouble. At number 5, we can use the will for the present. Imagine you go to a conference with lots of people and the speaker, you notice, is wearing this pink ribbon. Now, in the UK and some other countries, people wear a pink ribbon for this particular reason. You will have noticed that I'm wearing a pink ribbon. This is in memory of people who have suffered from cancer. So here, will have noticed is referring to the knowledge that people have at the time. You're anticipating that people saw this ribbon before you spoke. So you will have noticed means in the past, before now, you noticed this. This is what I expect to be true before now. And this is our shared knowledge of now. So will have noticed means I expect or assume that you noticed it before now. It's a kind of present perfect, but using will. Number 4 is annoying behaviour. Have you ever been in a situation where someone is getting in the way? For example, he will interfere in our games. Here you're expressing your annoyance that someone interferes a lot. He will interfere. And we can use will in this way to express annoyance at someone's behaviour. He will always be late. She will leave the lights on. And what's important here is you put extra stress on the word will to show that you are using it for annoyance, not for the future. At number 3, typical behaviour. This girl always does this after dinner. So if someone is saying, "Why don't you ask this girl out after dinner?" you could respond, "Don't ask her to come out after dinner. She will always watch her favourite programme at that time." Here, will always watch means it's a regular activity in the present and probably continuing into the future. It's like saying, this is our expectation. Similar to when we said, you will have noticed, meaning my expectation of what you noticed in the past. Here, without have, this is our expectation of a regular activity that's present, but carrying on beyond the present. And number 2, again, addresses the fact that will can be used as a noun. So it's important to know that so that you don't get confused when you see it or hear it. Now, there are several uses of will as a noun, but desire is not often known until you get to an advanced level of English. Look at this example. Here's someone who's tired, and the reason is because they can't run anymore. I just don't have the will to finish the race. And here the will means I don't have the desire. I don't have the desire to finish the race. I don't have the will. There are other uses of will as a noun, such as something that says what's going to happen to your possessions upon death, but this is a good one to know. The will means desire. And that leads us to number 1. And number 1 involves a modal verb that is often missed out from English language teaching. That's probably because sometimes it's a modal verb and sometimes it's not. It's the word dare. Dare can be a modal verb in some situations. Let's first of all look at what it means. It means to be brave enough to do something or encourage someone else to be brave when it's followed by an object. So I dared to go out in the snow. This is about me being brave enough to do something. She dared us to cross the weak bridge. This is encouraging someone else to be brave. Now, it doesn't look like a modal verb in this situation, but it changes when we get into the negative or question form. Have a look at the statements now. I don't dare go out in the snow. Dare you cross the weak bridge? Now notice here we've left out the word to. We simply say I don't dare go out in the snow. So we have dare followed by the infinitive without to. And the same with the question. Dare you cross the weak bridge? Here we would never use to. Some people might try it with the negative statement, I don't dare to go out in the snow. But in the question form, we would never use it. We would always say dare without to. And notice that dare begins the sentence. And that is something that is reserved for auxiliary verbs and modal verbs. And for that reason, we qualify dare as a modal verb. But before we finish, let me address a controversy in English grammar. Is the phrase had better a modal verb or not? If you look in this situation, you may think that it is. You had better say sorry. You've really upset her. So here we have had better followed by the infinitive without to. Had better means this is a good idea. In fact, you should do this. It has more urgency than should. It really stresses the importance of something. But we don't really use it at the beginning of a question. But did you spot the missing modal verb meaning in one of the descriptions of the basic uses of modal verbs? If you think you did, leave a message in the comment and I will reply and tell you if it is the one I was expecting you to say. And if you think you've spotted a use of a modal verb that I've not covered at all, put that in the comments too, so we can all benefit from your knowledge.